生微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in 1,000,000 eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture this evening. If you're in California, tonight, if you're in New York, this afternoon, if you're here in Queensland or wherever you might be around the world. We're explaining the 6th ground of the 10 grounds chapter, and I'm here with layman Sam Ong here in Gold Coast, Queensland. And Ali the Kookaburra is on the screen. He's a feathered Dharma protector. And I understand the Buddha had lots of those in his Dharma assembly. So we're on the right track anyway. So we're going to start by invoking the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Avatamsaka assembly. So I'm going to pop that up on the screen, and it's right there. That's what we're going to be chanting, and I've got my official Dharma instruments here. So let's do the Chinese, the second half, the lower half of that screen. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Jing Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. What we're chanting is on the upper half. Homage to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra of Great Expansive Teachings and the Ocean-Wide Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So this chant is both the name of the sutra, the official Chinese version of the name, and it's invoking the name of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who brought this sutra alive. Okay, here we go. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fan Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Okay. Now let's go down to page 15, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if that... Yes, 15 it is. Okay, good indeed. Now I'm going to ask, is Jerry on the computer that is webcasting us out to the universe? You and I can keep typing on the chat in case there are any technical glitches that arise in the process of this transmission. All right? So let me make that connection. Here we go. All right, and I'll keep my eye on the chat box in case the sound goes out or we get hung up somewhere in our transmission. All right. So what I would like to do is keep the text moving, and my tendency is to digress, to extrapolate at length and kind of take us down side roads, which can be interesting depending on the story that I'm telling, but the drawback is that we don't make progress through our text, and we're at a one of those moments in the text when we shift gears and we go from prose to verses, and so we want to get to that point today. We'll see if we can't finish with the information that the sutra wants us to know about the sixth ground bodhisattva, and then get on to singing about this bodhisattva's virtues and what he knows, what she knows when she masters the sixth ground. What kind of wisdom is hers? Okay, so that's my goal today. Let's see, here's our text, and I can make it bigger so you all can read it. There we go. All right. Okay, in fact, we need to move on to 16. Here we go, page 30 in our text. Let's do here. Okay, there's our Chinese text, and I'll do the entire page. We'll go down this whole page. Okay, so I'm going to put my palms together, and I'll be reading the Chinese. And if that's a challenge for you, follow the ABCs, follow the romanized below. Okay, if you can read the Hanzi, we're in business. Here we go. Ready? 此菩萨施波罗蜜中般若波罗蜜片多，于非不修，但虽力虽分。佛子是命了说菩萨摩诃萨第六现前地，菩萨住此地，多作善化天王，所作自在一切声闻，所有问难，无能退居，能令众生除灭我慢，深入缘起，布施爱语利恨同事，如是一切诸所作业，皆不离念佛，乃至不离念具足一切种一切智智。复作是念：我当于一切众生中为首为胜，乃至为一切智智意智者。Okay, how was that? How did we do with our Chinese? Is that interesting? I think I have a lifelong love of the Chinese language, so I know my answer. But whenever I practiced, whenever I experienced speaking Chinese, there was something very special about that just came alive for me. I've now lost my window. Come back. There you are. Hello there. Okay, good. We're working on a 13-inch screen, trying to get all our windows lined up here. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to do this now for the English. Here we go. This bodhisattva, among the 10 paramitas, stresses the paramita of prajna. It's not that he fails to practice the others, but he only does so according to his power and proportionately. Disciples of the Buddha, this is called a general discussion of the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's ground of manifestation. The bodhisattva who dwells on this ground for the most part becomes king of the heaven of good transformations, and he acts with comfort and with ease. No difficult questions asked by any sound hearers can cause him to submit. He can bring sentient beings to eradicate pride and deeply enter arising from conditions. In giving, kind words, beneficial actions, and similar deeds, all the karmic actions he performs are not separate from mindfulness of the Buddha, up to and including not being separate from mindfulness of endowment with all wisdom, the wisdom of all modes. He further makes the following reflection: I should, among all living beings, be a leader, be supreme, up to and including being one of wisdom, of all wisdom, on whom others can rely. Good stuff. Okay. There we go. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to work that text over again. And it could use some massaging, I think. And it'll help us understand what's going on here. Sixth ground conclusion of prose. Here we go. Okay, let's see what's going on. What are we going to talk about? The paramita of prajna. Let's highlight that one. Make that one yellow. Good. We can highlight 10 paramitas. Make that one yellow. According to his power and proportionately, we're going to highlight that one. Ground of manifestation. We're going to talk about that. All these things. For the most part, becomes king of the heaven of good transformations. Oh boy. And acts with comfort and ease. Got to talk about that. No difficult questions asked by any sound hearers can cause him to commit. Can talk about that. And deeply enter arising from conditions. That's simply not English. I'm sorry, nobody understands what that means. I can deeply enter arising from conditions. That's almost like code language. What are they really saying? So these four we're going to talk about. And let's see, not separate from. That phrase, and here it is again, not being separate from, gotta ding that one and talk about. And then mindfulness of. Here we go. Well, shoot, we've got so many here. Let's make a different color. We'll just make that red. Yeah, there we go. Mindfulness of endowment with the wisdom. Okay, there we go. Different colors. Such a colorful sutra. Okay, we'll get there today. All right. So what's happening here? Our bodhisattva is making his way up through the 10 grounds, right? And could be a man, could be a woman, could be somebody with a surname like Lee and Zhang or Smith or Jones. Could be anybody. Could be a non-human. How about that? The Buddha Dharma is very big. And the path for a bodhisattva is marked by the 6 paramitas. And guess what? We've run into 10. Oh my goodness. 10 paramitas. And this is the Mahayana. And this is the Avatamsaka among the Mahayana. And that our Avatamsaka Sutra is always going to 10. It's called the teaching of totality. And it's a hallmark of this text. You always get to 10 because 10 is 9 plus another one. You start over. It's round. 9 numerals are 0 if you 10 if you start with 0, 0 to 9. But you go to 9 and you're not done. You go to 10, you're done, but you're back to 1 again. So it's that round, perfect 10. And if you see the 10 of something, chances are it's an Avatamsaka that arose from this particular body of knowledge, this wisdom. So 10 paramitas, usually 6. Confusing? Well, multiple. You got to hold 2 things in mind. 6 paramitas, yeah, but 10. So this is number 6. And that's the standard paramita. A paramita means a way to get across. Crossing over is what a paramita does. It takes you over, takes you across from one side, crossing something that's hard to get across, to the other side safely. And a paramita does that. They're techniques, so they're antidotes. Okay? You got a big fire, the antidote is water. You've got lots of greed, the antidote is generosity. Give more. And it's a balancing. And if you're practicing paramita, you get balance. It's not instant. It's not effortless. You have to get involved. But if you do it, you balance. And you come back to healthy balance. So it's in terms of medicine, this is Chinese medicine. This is Indian Ayurveda. It's not Western allopathic where you cut out the disease or you blast it away or you hide the symptoms, right? A doctor who heals with paramita says perfect health is balance. You can sustain it, you yourself. It's an inner harmony, zhong and he in the Chinese way. So this bodhisattva is on to number 6, the 6th step, and it's prajna. Prajna is one of these amazing words that probably, I don't know, in our lifetime, will prajna be an English word? Is it going to make it into the lexicon? I don't know. Maybe Jinchuan, Jinhe, maybe Qinqian, maybe in your lifetime, before you're done, prajna will have been accepted, kind of like, you know, dharma is now kind of a popular word. Prajna is right at the gateway. It's not quite in the door yet. So work hard and make prajna a household word. Nah, not going to happen, right? Wishful thinking, why not? So prajna means wisdom, but it's a special kind of wisdom. It's transcendent wisdom that crosses over. And boy, oh boy, once you get close to prajna in your actual practice, things are different. Why? Because prajna is on the other side of the door of emptiness. That's why. Right? In China, in Chinese culture, where Buddhism has been for a long time, Buddhism has a nickname. And the nickname is Kong Mun. Kong Mun. I can actually do that here, by golly. I've got a document up. Watch this. Kong Mun. There we go. I'm going to blast that up. I have a new Chinese font, which I like. Let's see if I can find it here. Is it this one? No, here. Is that it? No. We'll do Li Song. There we go. There we go. Big. Hong Man. Okay, there it is. What is it? Empty. Emptiness. Door. Well, doors should be empty. Show me a full door and it's closed. You can't get through it, right? So doors, the function of the door is that it lets you through. So it's the door of emptiness. That's a really evocative name. That's a very cool name. If you had a religion's nickname, that would be a good one. You know, emptiness door. Door, the gateway to nothing. The gateway to the void. Ooh. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. Gateway to the void. There we have music like that, right? The doorway to emptiness. Try that. Emptiness door is pure Chinese. That's Chinglish. Door to emptiness. There we go. Gateway to the void. Cool. Sounds like the fun house at the carnival. So that's a great name. Okay. Prajna is on the other side of that door. So you have to go through emptiness to get to prajna. Okay, now, if I stop there, people could write me off as a wacko. That makes no sense. But here's how it makes sense. This term arose out of experience. And the experience was meditators had the experience. They meditated, and here's what happens. You actually are sitting there, and heat builds up. Once you have to go through things like leg pain, you have to go through things like boredom, you have to go through things like your own bad habits that arise all the time, and you get through things like your legs are asleep, numbness, and then your mind's asleep, and then drowsiness, and then excitability. All these various things happen as your body is settling in. And your chi and your blood circulation and your nerves, and of course your muscles, your skeletal structure, all find a new center, and then heat develops. You get warm, you feel warm. Sometimes cold develops, but usually it's heat. And that is, by itself, is no big deal, but it's a sign that your meditation is starting to interact with your system, with your body and mind and spirit. And you're outside you're at the region of samadhi, dhyana perhaps, dhyana samadhi. Chanding is about to appear, And mind you, I'm compressing this whole experience, and this could be it could be the first time they sit, if they're like some meditation monster, marine type meditator, who's like totally from the past life, they brought all their merit and virtue along. For most of the rest of us who are not like that, it takes years probably of dedicated sitting. But you get to that place, and then what happens is the structure of your senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, starts to interact with that heat of your meditation, and it starts to change. And you actually experience your body as not the way it used to be. It's not this solid, lumpy, clumpy thing that's always got to be not too hot, not too cold, not too hard, not too soft. Our bodies are so fragile. But when you get to this place of meditation, your molecular structure of the atoms of your body, and I'm talking totally randomly, this is not technical language, but the composition of your body starts to change, and you experience things going empty. Now, it's the interaction between eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, the things your eye sees, sights, the things your ears hear, sounds, smells, tastes, sensations of touch, and things the mind sees, and the consciousness of those objects and organs, sense organs, sense objects, and consciousness. In between those 18 realms, they're called the Shirabajia, there's changes. There are changes. Now, somebody might say, boy, this sounds just so bizarre. Okay, who remembers the last time you had a high fever? Distortion. You had fever dreams. You weren't asleep, but you were hallucinating, right? Yeah. Will anybody ever drink too much alcohol? Get slightly tipsy? You don't have to tell me. Don't raise your hand. I'm not actually asking. This is a rhetorical question for the sake of the exercise. So think of the last time you got drunk. If you ever get drunk, nobody ever gets drunk. I know Buddhists don't drink. So did you experience a distortion of reality? Yeah. Because why? Your bloodstream had alcohol in it. That's why it's not a good idea to try to drink and meditate. Because you end up, it's like tying your shoes together and trying to walk. So What about the last time you were walking in the dark? How simple is that? Turn the lights out, go outside on a cloudy night in the dark or there's no moon, and watch what happens to your sense of balance. Your ears suddenly are like, want to put out feet, your ears want to put out fingers so you can find out where you are. That's how fragile our senses are. So if you sit still and meditate deeply, those same things happen as your same senses, and things start to loosen up. They get, quote, empty. They're not the same as before. So there we go. The Buddha's disciples had been sitting long enough that the Buddha could start teaching. And he said, okay, good. Empty, go further. They're not empty. Nature doesn't do vacuums. But what is happening is there's transformation. And you will recognize that not only is the body that seems so solid now seems less solid, but the self inside there that we thought was so real is equally flaky. The big me in the middle suddenly doesn't seem that way. The things that I thought were so solid and true about me are just ideas. It's a constructed self. And so those quote realities also shake up after you meditate deeply. That's close to the door of emptiness, but it's just the first step. Then you go through emptiness and you realize it's not Kong, and it's called the Kong Bu Kong San Mei, right? The empty, not empty samadhi. And you get to the place of what's called the middle way. There's Kong Jia. Kong seems it empties out, and empty becomes a verb. You actually empty it. No, that's not real either. I'll empty that out. Don't attach to emptiness, the Buddha would say. So you empty out emptiness, and you realize that the me that's experiencing is not real, and the things that I'm experiencing are jia, they're false realities. And yet it doesn't do to go around saying it's all empty, it's all empty. It's just empty, it's all empty. You know that, emptiness, nothing but emptiness. So, because why? That's not true either. It's prajna, empty, which is to say, once you're through that door, you realize there's another level of truth. And that's prajna. Took a long time to get to that explanation, right? Is it worth it? I don't know. You still there? Everybody bored? Like, okay. So you empty it out and it doesn't stay empty, but you remember that it's not real in that former, the way it used to be real, and it's not true the way it used to be true for you when you were in duality. You only had right and wrong, true and false. Now you realize that that whole thing is made up of your karma and your habits and the conventions of knowledge, like language, thoughts, and you get compassion. On the other side of prajna wisdom is compassion, but it has to be really empty. You have to really empty it out. Then you see what? What does the Bodhisattva see? The Bodhisattva says, man, I thought it was real, and I was running around like fighting for myself and creating all this stupid karma because I was reacting to this thing that I thought was real. And now I know it's not, but you know what? Everybody else who I care about still thinks it's real. And they're still totally in the dark, bumping into stuff. And if I can live with wisdom and compassion, maybe I can teach them and help them through it too. So prajna and karuna, 智慧 and 慈悲, right? Wisdom and compassion are back of the hand and the palm of the hand. So you empty it out, but then you realize that there's conventional wisdom, conventional truth that everybody needs to believe is true. Green lights are green lights, red lights are red lights. And that's your wallet and your passport. It's not an empty passport. You need that passport. That phone is your phone. You need that. But you don't take it as ultimately true. And you use those formerly true truths to teach. So there's the Bodhisattva. And it's the way across that uses wisdom, using prajna to cross over. So, okay, step it back to where we jumped into that long explanation. What I said was, where do we get the sixth paramita? It comes from experience. This came from the Buddha's own disciples who were meditating and who had that experience of stuff going empty on them. What they used to think was true in Rio just kept bottoming out. You know, things went flat. But he stepped them through the long process, and on the other side of it, suddenly it wasn't flat anymore. It was the foundation of their compassion. Because they emptied out, they say, 我空法空. They emptied out their self first. That constructed me went away. Then they were able to empty out dharmas because they realized that this was all made from their perception. Everything they knew was just a way of seeing. So that's the second step into this door. The Buddha teaches us a whole new way of seeing based on wisdom. How cool is that? All right. Going forward, it is not that he fails to practice the other paramitas, but he does so according to his power and proportionally. Anjiao Fen, Anjiao Li. I guess Anjiao Li, Anjiao Fen, it says. So he also practices generosity and morality, patience and vigor and samadhi, but he doesn't put all of his strength in those five. He's here in number 6, prajna. When we got to 5, it was the same thing. He practices the others, but when it got to dhyana, when he was number 5, he did dhyana mostly, and then for vigor, he did vigor mostly. Okay, so each of these, this is part of the refrain of this text. The chorus, every ground has this boilerplate text that repeats. The Bodhisattva who dwells, who stays on this ground. You know, like dwell. You don't dwell on the ground. Excuse me, where do you dwell? No. Where do I live? Oh, I have an address. Oh, thank you. Give me your address, please. I don't dwell. I live, I stay, I abide, I rest, I stop. Who stays upon this ground, for the most part, means there are exceptions. Dozo mostly is king of the heaven of good transformations. What is the king of the heaven of good transformations? Okay, time for Dharma embarrassment. Jinchuan Shi, what is the heaven of good transformations? The clock is ticking, tick, tick, tick. I'm sorry, the time is up. You, mister. Don't touch your references. What is the heaven of good transformation? What is it?
I don't know what Sanhua is. That Tahua Tian? No, I lose.
Okay, now I embarrassed you because 5 minutes before we went on, I saw that and I quickly looked it up on Wikipedia. So it's, anybody else want to go for it? Don't touch your phones. Okay, cross the aisle. Yihuan, can you guess or do you know? What is the Shanhua Tian?
Fashi, I can't, sorry, because I'm reading the Master Hua's commentary. There's no explanation to. Sorry.
No explanation. Oh, bummer, man. Okay, anybody? Hands up. YC, is YC there? I can't tell. Which number? Yes! 5 points to the monk on the left. Well done. However, it's tricky. Why? Because that's not its name. Okay. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of creative Dharma research here. Okay, we know it as the what? Hua, Le, Tian. That's what we know it as, right? That's why it's confusing. The sutra says Shan. Oops. Where'd it go? There we go. The sutra says Shan, Hua, Hua, Tian. That's not the same. Okay, so golly. So that's your first clue. One character is the same, the Hua. Usually we hear about the Hua Le Tian, and the next one in line is what? Deafening silence coming over my mic. Suzanne, is that you got your hand up? No? Alice, anybody? Alan, anybody? I'm just carrying the microphone. Don't ask me.
Is it 他法自在天?
Yes, 5 points to the woman on the right. 他法自在天. Okay, here's the deal. This is Buddha Dharma 101. These are facts that do not change. It's kind of like, I mean, it's very interesting if you see it this way. Excuse me, the prize spin, the big prize wheel host needs a drink here. Dong Ding Oolong. Wow. That is such good tea. Good tea. Okay. This is a lot like a roadmap, a Buddha Dharma roadmap. And here's another one of those places where kind of like you keep the paramitas, you know, there's this 2 things you have to keep in mind with the Buddha, with the basics of the Buddha Dharma. Some people love this stuff. I'm one of them who does. Other people just find it too confusing to think that here in the sutra the Buddha is saying, okay, above us, closest to the earth, is the heaven of the 4 devas, the 4 kings of heaven. The what? The 4 天王天. So we'll take a note. Too big. Try that. Okay, and try this. Okay, and there we go. Okay, heaven of the 4 kings. These are called the 6 desire heavens, or the 6 heavens of the desire realm. This is another way to translate it in English. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do a run through. Number 1 is heaven of the 4 kings. Number 2 is the Traya Stream Sha heaven, otherwise known as heaven of the 32 devas. And our Avatamsaka translation team argued over whether we should be heaven of the 33 Sanshra Santian. Should it be 32 or 33? Should we use the word deva or not? So we'll whack that one out later. Number 3 is the Suyama heaven, the heaven of well-divided time. Okay, number 4 is called the Tushita heaven, the heaven of, how do we translate Tushita? Tushita I've forgotten the translation for Tushita. That one you can look up. You got your Sanskrit? Bring your Moni or Williams to lecture.
Okay, I'll get it.
Tushita. Shan. I forget. Okay, number 5. This is our heaven. The heaven of wholesome transformations. And that's called the Nirmarati heaven, which is really tough. Then, number 6 is like the hardest Sanskrit name. It's the Parivarshavatan, the Nirmanarati no, I forgot. Shoot, I have to look it up. Okay, this is heaven. This is the heaven of bliss derived from others' transformations. It's called. And the Chinese is the Ta Hua Zizai Tian. Ta Hua Zizai Tian. Okay, there you go. Now it's like, whoa, so much. Why bother with this? Why am I taking us down this road? It's because, as I say, in Buddhism, we're always doing this little two-step dance, which is to say, this is the Buddha in the sutras telling us, here's how things are in the heavens, from my point of view. And so you go, okay, that's like ancient esoteric knowledge. And then every now and then you get a clue that the Buddha just pulled the curtain off the sky and showed you how it actually is right now in this world. It's not long ago and far away in the Buddha's books. This is how it is, if you can see. And so you do this kind of like, it's reality, but it's like spiritual reality. Oh, that's just Buddhist stuff. You know, that's the geeky lore from Buddhism. And I'm always doing that. I'm always like flashing that this is realer than reality. Reality, what do? You turn the telescope up, you look, you don't see heaven. And Christian heaven, pretty much, depending on whose story you follow, it begins and ends with God the Father. Except you get these other stories about things like Lucifer. If you study the Bible, you learn about Lucifer. Who's Lucifer? Lucifer is Satan. Who is Satan? He's the demon king. He's the devil. And you know where he started? He started in the heavens, and he fell. Lucifer was in heaven. In the book of Job, in the Bible, he is talking to God, watching a human, God's most faithful servant, and he decides he's going to test him. He's going to get God to test him. So here's Satan up in heaven, and then you study Buddha Dharma, and you hear that Mowang, Mara, the destroyer, Mara means killer or murderer, Mara lives in the sixth desire heaven. And what he does, it's called a Tahua Zizai. He goes to places where there's a lot of Jing Qi Shen, the three inner jewels of humanity, being transformed. When? Death, especially dramatic sudden death like mass killings or plane crashes or orgies, coupling like that. And that's, he goes and feeds off others' energy. That's the Buddhist description of Mara. It sounds a whole lot like Satan in the Old Testament. Huh. Okay, let's go to the other end. How about this one? These two. Let's look at these two. Number one, the four kings of heaven, those are called wheel-turning sage-like kings. Zhuanlun Shenwang, right? Chakravartins. And in India, in ancient India, in the Vedas, those Chakravartins had regular, prolonged contact with humanity. And the Buddhist sutras are always talking about these 4 kings of heaven interacting with people. If you, as a cultivator, can accomplish your work in the way and wake up, these gods will come and bow to you. Who lives in the second level? Heaven. This is where it gets really esoteric, and you have to talk about this with a caution, which is know your audience. If some of the information that Sherpa would pass on doesn't fly in interfaith conversations. Okay, why? Lord God on high lives in the Triastrimsha heaven. God Supreme, God the Father, lives there. And David, is David in the back? David, you got to plug your ears on this one. Don't turn your tape recorder off, and don't tell the Father down at St. Joseph the Worker. Okay. Master Hua would say, God, Lord God, his position in the Buddhist heavens is kind of like postmaster. He's basically about the same as a notary public. He doesn't even have a seat when the Buddha shows up. He has to stand. And of course you're going, anybody here, like, do we have any ministers? Is this an interfaith gathering? We don't want to come off demeaning God. That doesn't help our interfaith friendship, you know. So it's like, oh my Lord. So who is that? That's Chakra Devanam Indra. You know him from the Shurangama mantra. Namo Balahamoni Namo Intolaye. That's him. That's Indra. Intolaye is Indra. So there's Indra, God on high, they say, the Christian, Hebrew, Jewish, Islamic God. Shh, we don't want to get bombed by any fundamentalists here. Lives in the second level of the desire heaven. And he, pretty much a he, not a she, although in theory it could be a she, right? Used to be a she. That's so interesting. Chakra Indra was transformed from a woman. She still is very much in birth and death. Still is mortal, is not immortal, and is like 4 heavens lower than Mara, than the Deva, the demon king. So you think, oh man, what a story. The Buddhists are just like fighting with the Christians for supremacy in the heavens, right? No, not the case. There's nothing to win, nothing to lose here. You look at Greek mythology, and what do you discover? If you read your Edith Hamilton Greek mythology, the Greek gods on Mount Olympus, in the Greek way of talking about the heavens, are always struggling with the Titans for supremacy of the heavens. The Titans are these immensely strong fighters who are powerful and big and anxious to regain or to get the respect from having defeated the gods. They have the blessings of a god, but they don't have the power or the status of a god. And so they're always fighting with the gods of the second heaven. The Avatamsaka Sutra, the sutra we're studying right now, tells stories about the warfare in the heavens. You can be born in the heavens and still go to war. And it's really esoteric and very far out. If you read the chapter in the Avatamsaka that's talking about conflict in the heavens, what happens is Chakra Lord Indra, Shakradevanam Indra, who is the Lord God equivalent in the Buddhist description, he uses psychic power to struggle with the Buddhist equivalent of the Titans, known as the what? Who fights for the Devas for control? The Asuras, right? You know, you were going to say that, right? I'll give you 5 points. You know you were going to say it. The Asuras. The Asuras are fighting with the gods for control of the heavens in Buddhist cosmology. In Greek cosmology, the Titans are fighting with the gods for control of the heavens. You go, wow, that's the same story. But, could it be the same story? You think, where did those cultures meet? Those cultures met in Persia, currently known as Iran. Right where Hellenistic civilization at the eastern end of the Mediterranean met Indic civilization. Who went there? Well, Alexander the Great marched into India. We have sutras that are conversations between monks from India and kings from Greece. King Menander, right? The Milinda Panha is a Pali text that's Greek culture and Indian culture completely merging. So how interesting. Same story. And Chakra does what? He uses his psychic powers and he appears in front of every Ashura soldier with tusks coming out of his mouth, flames shooting out of his eyes, holding a vajra pestle or a mace, and transforming his body into countless numbers of soldiers, each one bearing down on every individual Ashura fighter, right? And so the Asuras, here's the sutra telling us this story. You can find it in the sutra. The Ashura soldiers are going, oh my God, here comes Chakra right at me. And they turn tail and run away. They drop their weapons and run. And it's all a mock show. It's all a bluff, right? It's all done with smoke and mirrors with psychic power. So how cool, you know, just think what a video game we could make out of the Avatamsaka Sutra. Kids, teenagers would buy it by the billions, having Asuras and gods fighting with psychic powers in the heavens, right? So how amazing, right? Okay, each one of these heavens has a story like that. The stories of the heavens in the Avatamsaka Sutra go on and on. They're just astounding. The heavenly drum that sounds twice. There's a tiangu. When does it not ring? The drum goes boom, boom, boom. When does it go boom? It goes boom when it's time to listen to Dharma, because Chakra, who is secretly a bodhisattva, wants to speak Dharma for the Devas. He hits the drum. Or when the Asuras are attacking. You hear the drum and you turn out with your weapons. Who would think that you could go to heaven and go to war, right? Okay, all of these gods fall at some point. So we've got German operas, right? Götterdämmerung, the fall of the gods. My goodness, there's so many, you know, Gustav Mahler writes these incredible compositions about how gods fall. Imagine when a god falls. And it's because their time was up, their blessings were gone, they're still on the turning wheel, and down they come. Okay, today we heard about heaven number 5. The heaven of wholesome transformations, otherwise known as the heaven of bliss transformed. 花乐天, bliss that comes from transformations, a bliss that arises from transformation. Now, transformation is obviously a euphemism, right? That's a name for something else. So, bliss that arises from transformation. Because why? There are two names. One is Hua Le, bliss that arises from the transformation, and also wholesome transformations. Now, when I looked it up just before lecture, I confess I did that. It said Deva's one night and one day in this, the fifth desire heaven, is 80 years, 80年, and no, 800? Yeah, so 800 days and nights in the human realm is 1 day and night in this heaven. There's these sliding scales, okay? And the lifespan of a deva in this heaven is 8,000 years. What's the difference between human rebirth and deva rebirth? And in short, the answer is blessings. Want to be a god? Cultivate blessings. How do you cultivate blessings? Shifu would say, make other people happy. You get happy in the process, but just because making others happy is joy. So you get blessings by 令他人欢喜, make other people happy, said Shifu. You can be a god, you can come back. So this god, Lord God, was a woman who was walking in her village and noticed that a temple's roof had fallen in, and the Buddha images were being damaged by the weather. She got her buddies together, 33 of them altogether, including her, and they did odd jobs to get money and repaired the images, repaired the roof, making people happy. Their shrine was back. So as a result, she became Lord Chakra, Indra. So how about that? That's the story. God began as a woman who did good deeds. She became the king among gods, and known to the West as Lord God on high. Okay, now, people, reality check time. I've been telling you these stories. This is all in the sutra, and did I grow up knowing this stuff? No, I was a Christian. I was a Methodist, Protestant. And the things I just said in the last 20 minutes would have been absolutely inadmissible. Just wrong. That's not true. That's not our story. We have a different story. Right. It's okay to be in a world with different stories. You don't have to have one story which is entirely true. Okay, I'm going to ask Roberto, is that correct? Which story is true?
Hello? Yeah. All of them.
Which story is the true story here?
Oh, which stories we're talking about?
And none of the above is also acceptable.
Well, I would say all the stories are good. All of them.
That's why we pay you the big bucks and hand you the microphone at the right moment.
Okay, thank you.
So I met Roberto at the Theosophists Center in Ojai, and boy, did they tell stories about creation. How would they react to my saying the Christian God is only number 2 out of 6 in the Buddhist pantheon? What would they say?
Well, what would they say? I really don't know that, but they do have overall a Buddhist cosmology. If you analyze it, it's Buddhist cosmology, and so they will not make a big deal out of who is, here or there, or who is at the higher level. I don't think so.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so how much blood has been shed in the world over this issue? That's why I put Roberto on the spot. It's like, my God's bigger than your God. Oh yeah? Says who? You gotta die now. Right? That's the way tribal mentality works. We have to move into a post-tribal civilization if we're going to make it. We have to get past a time when there's only one right answer. And what happens to people who go to something like the Parliament of World's Religions, where there's 10,000 people who were brought into one story, but then expanded their story. What happens to people who admit the possibility that multiple stories can be true and there's goodness in every story? Your heart expands. What you discover is the heart is an expandable organ. You can hold a lot in there. And bigger hearts make for a happier world and a better human. If you think about religious conflicts in the world, it's from people with hard hearts, hardened hearts. This is the only truth. So that's the bigger context of my presenting this, right? Just to say, here's a Buddhist story. What's fascinating is it has echoes in other stories. One thing for sure we can say about this story is it's an old one. This is an old story. It's been around, as far as we know, for 2,550 years. But it certainly didn't begin with the Buddha. The Buddha was reporting what he saw. The same way that Native Americans report a story that is nature-based, earth-based cosmology. And there's lots of, when I talked about these kinds of principles in interfaith, particularly in URI, the community that picked up on it immediately was indigenous communities, talking about Mother Earth and elemental balance and harmony, and that all things are alive. The living beings crossing over, in the 6 realms of the heavens. They would just, my friend Rosalia Gutierrez from Argentina would just light up. She would say, "Who talks like this?" We'd say, "The Buddhists." "Oh, how come I haven't heard this before?" I said, "How many Buddhists do you know?" She said, "You're the only one." "Oh, well, that's why." Okay, so a lot of Buddhists talk like this. No, okay, there we go. Thank you for indulging me while I run us through the heavens here. We're going to go right back to our text and say, up. We had our document in hand, didn't we? There we go. Yes, here we are. Here's our document. Okay, the king of the heaven of good transformations, he acts with comfort and ease. Not so good. We would say now, we're translating this as independent, no. What kind of self-mastery?
Self-mastery?
Effortless self-mastery. There we go. He acts with effortless self-mastery. Comfort and ease is the wrong shading in English. That sounds like you're back in your Barca lounge, you're by the poolside in your chaise lounge. Nope. Okay, next. So what do we have here? What's going on here is this is a technical description of what happens when the Bodhisattva accomplishes the learning masters the Dharma of the sixth ground. These are the things that come with it. This is a technical manual. Just as much as saying, okay, you are now a graduate of the university, that means you're an alumni. That means you will be getting mailings from the fellowship committee that wants your money. That means you get a special discount price at the football tickets. You know, that's what's going on here. No difficult questions asked by any sound hearers can cause him to submit. Can you imagine a situation where a sound hearer asks a bodhisattva a difficult question and the bodhisattva has to submit? Yeah, I can. An Australian Theravada monk who will remain nameless in Perth about 6 years ago when I attended a global Buddhist conference. It was my turn to speak in front of the assembly. It was a plenary talk, and I talked about the bodhisattva. And it was time for Q&A, and this monk, with all of his rhetorical force, said, "Do you," this was the energy that he brought to it, he said, "Do you really expect us to believe that anybody, after having cultivated to the door of nirvana, is going to say, I think I will postpone my liberation for some airy-fairy living beings? Do you really want us to believe anybody ever is going to do that?" And with, I'm imitating. And I said, yeah, I do, because I've met a few who've done that. You want to hear about them? It's pretty inspiring. And so this very question was asked to me by a Theravada monk, and he and I became good friends after that. That was my first introduction to this particular bhikshu, and he maybe hadn't had a conversation with anybody who could talk about the Mahayana in English, perhaps. But yeah, I know there's an entire sutra based on people who live for others. It's called the Avatamsaka. And they've already gone through, they've emptied out the self that can seek liberation. They've emptied out the self and dharmas. And they only stick around to guide others back through the maze of Saha world. Okay, he can bring sentient beings to eradicate pride and deeply enter arising from conditions. Let's get the Chinese for that. 除灭我慢深入人气. Okay. Wowie. That is such a puny translation. Deeply enter arising from conditions. If you want to know what is Chinglish, that is Chinglish. That is Chinese words with English words pasted on top. Deeply enter conditioned arising. Okay, not a skillful translation, not a helpful translation. Translation should help us understand. He has, what do we say in real English? Really mastered universal mechanics, right? I.e., the 12 links of conditioned arising. He has really got it. Deeply entered, conditioned, arising from conditions. Okay, this is, maybe people read, oops, pause that, there we go. Oh, why did I get stuck? Do I look stuck to you? There we go. Ah, now we go. I was too long in, share my webcam, too long in the word processor and my video feed got stuck. Okay, so we should translate If we don't understand it, say so, but don't just kick it back and say deeply enter arising from conditions. Makes no sense. Has really mastered the 12 links of conditioned arising. Thoroughly mastered. Understands this stuff. Understands how things arise, where they come from, how one thing leads to the other. Okay, now take a look here. Here's where we are. This is our text. In giving, and put numbers here, kind words, beneficial actions, and similar deeds. All the karmic actions he performs are not separate from. I highlighted that because that's not what we say. I am not separate from you. Yeah, we could say that. I am not separate from. No, we say I'm connected to. Right? I'm with. I'm right on. I'm identical with. Right? You don't think of myself as being separate from. That's pure Chinese. So I'm connected to mindfulness of the Buddha, up to and including another kind of mindfulness. This is a list. When you see Niger, up to and including, it's a list of stuff. Okay, we got 2 lists in this paragraph. Let's try to understand this paragraph, then we're basically done. So hang in there. I know we've been listening for a long time. Two lists. Come down here. Buddhism is full of lists. Wholesome dharmas. Okay, these are called the 4 methods of gathering in. It's one way to translate it. 4 methods of recruitment, if you're kind of cynical here. The 4 methods of connecting people with the Dharma. A good way to translate it. In Chinese, it's the 四, 舍, 法. 四, try again. 舍, 法. Which is literally 4. See the hand? There's 3 ears and 1 hand here. Somebody's like grab people, like pulling them across like that. Right? 4 methods for bringing people in to the Dharma, to their own minds, bringing them back to themselves, connecting people with the Dharma. And they are these 4. Only we can improve the translation. Okay, let's see if we can't unhighlight. Can you unhighlight? There we go. Did that do it? Yes, good. So giving or generosity. Kind words, that's a good one. Beneficial actions. We call that what? Service. What is this? Teamwork. Collaboration. Cooperation. Those are more common ways. What is this? These are Bodhisattva's tools for connecting with people. And you could say the Bodhisattva does these things in order to, not because they're recruitment. We're not evangelical. It's not the more members, the better. It's the idea that the Bodhisattva uses these things to turn people inside so that they start looking at their minds as the source of goodness instead of God or the group or the church or to get them to give money, you know. These are 4 ways to bring people together. with their own hearts. Giving, people remember you if you're generous to them. You give them something nice, they remember you. Food is the number one. You speak nicely to them, with them, and they remember you. They feel good about you. You serve them. You act in service. You show them that you're willing to put in effort in something that doesn't benefit you at all, but it helps them a lot. They remember. They're there. And then this one, you work with people. Right? You just work with them. Work together. And people respond. They like you because you're a good person. They went out and swept the streets of Chinatown with you. They went out and planted trees with you. They built houses with you. They cleaned up the beach. They, they sponsored a highway or washed oil off birds. Whatever it is, this is real traditional wisdom. If you want people to connect with you and to like you and be interested in what you say to them, be generous, speak nicely, work for them, work with them. It really works. 四摄法, 4 ways of getting together with people. And, okay, this one here, so we've talked about that. This one is interesting because it's a formula. This occurs in each of the grounds. Okay, so all the karmic actions she performs, what is this? Okay, now we can get rid of the colors. Remove the highlights and go back to black. Oh, black. There we go. Okay, everything this person, the Bodhisattva, does is connected to, connects with mindfulness of the Buddha up to and including connecting to, connecting with, up to and including, here we go, connecting with. All the karmic actions she performed connects with, up to and including, connects with mindfulness of endowment with all wisdom, the wisdom almost. Okay, this is a long list. It appears in other parts of the text, particularly our chapter, as the whole list. It says everything this Bodhisattva does connects with mindfulness of the Buddha, mindfulness of the Dharma, mindfulness of the Sangha, mindfulness of giving, mindfulness of the heavens, and mindfulness of the precepts. I think that's called the Liu Nian, the 6 forms of mindfulness. Somebody can check me on that one? I think it's called the Liu Zhong Nian. Liu Nian. So Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, giving, devas, meaning rebirth in the heavens, and the precepts. That's an earlier form. The Avatamsaka takes that and extends it to include mindfulness of Yiqie Zhi Zhi, Yiqie Zhong Zhi, which means the Buddha's wisdom. So there's a variety of lists of things the Bodhisattva never forgets. One is living being suffering. Right? Another is repaying kindness, etc., etc. So everything, here's what we get out of this sentence. Everything a Bodhisattva does, he or she does, keeping in mind that Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are jewels, and Buddhahood is the goal. And when you see Niger, up to and including, there's a whole bunch left out. Did somebody have a comment? I saw a microphone cross the aisle there. Yes. Whose hand is up?
Heng Sure, it's Angela. Hi.
Angela.
I was wondering if you could go over the different types of giving again.
Go over the different what, please?
The different kinds of giving.
Giving. Okay. I would, but it's, you know what? It's 3 p.m., which means 9 p.m. there, and it's midnight in New York. So our time is up. So let's do that next week. All right. Yes, can do. Giving is a main topic. That's a whole lecture in itself. Look at what we've covered today. We started out with prajna. We started out with paramitas. We went to prajna. We talked about the heavens. We talked about emptiness, how to get to prajna, all the different kinds of stories of heavens, and we talked about, Mara, and we talked about chakra, and on, and then the 4 methods of gathering in, and the lists of things the bodhisattvas are mindful of. Here's our sutra. Here's our piece. And let's see, we haven't quite finished here. So here we go. We did finish to here. We're going to start next week with the bodhisattva's reflection. She is challenging herself, hisself, to continue, because why? One of the hardest parts of the entire 10 grounds path is ahead of him. Between the 7th and the 8th is the biggest challenge after making the Bodhi resolve at the start. So that's coming up, and that's really tough. It's really tough. And the Bodhisattva could get stuck, or he could go on to success. And it depends on whether or not he listens to the Buddhas who appear to him or her and encourage him forward. So there you go. Okay, so we'll talk about giving next week. All right, by golly, we did good. Here's our control panel. And are there any last quick questions that we can answer briefly? Anything online? Jerry, how many people are online joining us this time? Now that we seem to have kind of got our technology under control. 2 weeks ago it was a disaster. We had to bail because two ends of our technological bridge fell in at the same time. 20 people have joined us online. Super. How Jin Hosher, Jin Chuansher, how's it working this time?
Quite good.
How's
The sound's
technology
clear,
working?
the image is clear, everything looked like it worked really smoothly.
Can you speak up
It
a
looks
little?
like it worked really smoothly.
Great. Awesome. Okay, I wish I had a beautiful Buddha image behind me. I just have a wall. It's just a wall with a chair. But maybe that simplicity is okay. Do you want to give some announcements? Do we have anything that people need to know at the Berkeley Monastery?
Yes, we have quite a few events coming up. For instance, tomorrow we have an all-day Buddha recitation, walking recitation. On the following weekend, we have an Amitabha recitation weekend. We'll be posting the event online so people can register online. But if you're actually in the Buddha Hall now, we have a sign-in sheet. I believe Dharma Master Jingfo has it. So if you would like to sign up, you can act with Dharma Master Jingfo or Mr. Yap in the back. And then after that, after Christmas, there's an Amitabha session at CTDB. And following, we have a Chan session at CTDB. And we'll be actually having a Chan session here in Berkeley as well. So during the week of the Chan session, we won't be open throughout the week, but on the Saturdays, we'll be having a Chan meditation day on the Saturdays. So people are welcome to join for that as well. We'll have more information probably in the following weeks around that. Otherwise, we are also finishing our classes on December 18th. So DRBU is going to be officially finishing all its classes on December 18th for the winter break. And then let's see. Oh, we have one more thing, which is we have this year's calendar. And so people are welcome if you have a calendar. It's the new 2016 calendar. I just was reading on the calendar. It's 3,040 some years on the Buddhist years. 2043 Buddhist years. So people are welcome to grab a copy, but please don't take just take one so that it can go around with everybody, and then we can kind of make sure everybody can get one. I think we're just saying that somebody mentioned that if you would like, you can also make a donation for the calendars. I think they're usually about $5, but whatever you'd wish. Okay. Oh, and also Jing Forger says there's going to be a 8 precept transmission on the upcoming Saturday, December 12th. December 12th. That'll be at 8 a.m. in the morning. So if you'd like to take the 8 precepts, please come on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock sharp. Anything else I forgot?
Okay, great. The this year's calendar is really nice. I've seen it, and I'm really impressed that our calendars have progressed a long way. I wanted to share with everybody how exciting it is in my neighborhood when the kookaburras come for food and the turkey shows up at the same time. Now I know you can't see the video move, but let's see if we can. So here's Ali has just got a piece of ham, and the turkey has come behind it. That's the daddy turkey. And I was kind of surprised to see him, so I didn't frame it very well. There we go. Kookaburras and turkeys in the same moment. So this is my neighborhood. Feathered Dharma protectors, definitely. Okay, let us transfer the merit, and we can do it with a document here. My songs. We're about to begin a Chan session here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm for a week, and some monks have come to lead it. Heng Sure from Hong Kong and Jin Sure from Malaysia have come. So we'll be meditating for 1 week. All right, so let's put our palms together, put our hearts together, and transfer the merit. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, thank you for joining, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Amitofo.
Amitofo. We're going to do 3 bows to the Buddhas and Master Hua. You want to lead it, Jing Hosher? Oh, okay.